Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film.
Today we're going to be talking about Jurassic World's Mother of a Problem. So, Mary Sue came out with an article. It looks like it was written by Leslie Coffin, and it was about how super unfeminist and sexist and offensive Jurassic World is. And I actually brought this up to Ren because I saw Jurassic World a couple times because I saw it with my dad. He really wanted to see it. And after I saw it, I read this article, and all it did was make me realize how feminist the movie actually is, but I didn't really notice because it was subtle, which feminism and environmentalism are two things that are never subtle in movies. So I didn't think about it the first time I saw it, but after the second time I was just like, wow, thank you, Leslie Coffin, for showing me how feminist the movie really is, even though that was totally not your point.
Yeah, there have been media critics recently that have gone on this stint of everything that you think is feminist, every form of entertainment that comes out is somehow not feminist. We talked about Mad Max, you can check out that one.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about Jurassic World, which compared to Mad Max is way less feminist, but I still think that it does have some feminist points to it.
Yeah, I do too. Like, I don't think it's a feminist movie as its whole underlying message, but I do think that... Hang on.
Claire.
Yeah, I think Aunt Claire is a feminist character. Well, it starts off with an article that basically links back to another article saying, oh my god, Mary Sue got quoted on something. But it was basically saying they were expecting the movie to be really sexist, and it was.
Because with their mentality, if
everything
they go
is offensive until proven unoffensive.
Okay, so what does this movie have going against it? Well, they have a woman who wears high heels, and she wears a dress. So she wears feminizing clothing. Also, compared to the original Jurassic Park movie, she had a much more feminized look than Laura Dern's character in the original Jurassic Park. Plus, there was a young girl in Jurassic Park as well. Whereas in this movie, there's really only one female character in the movie. I mean,
there's also the mother-sister character who's kind of in it.
The
but
mother-sister
really.
character and like the person who's supposed to be watching over them.
Wait a minute. All the dinosaurs were chicks except for the T-Rex. The Indominus Rex was a chick and a badass bitch to boot. And then you had all four raptors who were all chicks, which is awesome because raptors are my favorite. I love raptors. Raptor Red was a really good book when I was a kid, and Raptor Red was a chick raptor. Anyway, so that's what you kind of got out of the movie yourself.
Right, yeah. I mean, I could get where some people might make arguments that, like, okay, compared to the original Jurassic Park movie, this character's a lot more feminized. It's a lot more...
She's a lot more feminized, but...
It was partly her job.
Exactly. A lot of this movie is about bureaucracy and selling out. And she was kind of the epitome of that. She was the boss. She was, the head boss in charge of this whole fucking park, which is a really prestigious position to be in. And she was in control, and she had the power, and she was a woman in charge. Now, part of it is that she had to wear stupid garbage clothing, like, that's completely impractical, because that's a bullshit dress code that women have to deal with in a professional environment.
Right.
I mean, like, I think it was more of an indictment on that than like, oh look, she's a girl, she's wearing heels. Because men don't have an equivalent to heels. They don't. I know there's the business suit and tie, which is really uncomfortable. I know. But I've worn full-on suits. I've worn full-on professional women's clothing. I've worn heels. Heels are much fucking worse than a tie, because ties look awesome.
And on top
heels are stupid.
And on top of that, heels are sometimes a requirement depending on what job it is.
Exactly. And she's in that position where she has to wear these stupid clothes. But here's the thing. She never gives a fuck. There is never a time when she's like, oh no, my skirt's getting ruined. I chipped a nail. Oh no, my hair is frizzing. She doesn't care. Yeah,
if you want to see Bryce Dallas Howard in that role, watch Spider-Man 3.
Well, yeah, but in the movie... There's even a part where Chris Pratt's just like, dude, look at what you're wearing. You can't do anything. And she's just like, takes her shirt up and rolls up her arms and is like, no, I'm going. I don't care.
I thought that scene was hilarious.
That scene was awesome, though, because she's like, you think I give a shit what I look like? No, I'm gonna do this with you. Like, that's more of what it was about than, oh, look, she's a girl, like this particular article was claiming. So it starts off saying she gets to kick a little bit of ass, but she's usually just hanging around Chris Pratt, and usually a lot of the scenes where she gets to do something awesome are saying, oh, but she's a girl, and making a point of that, even though I think it's more of a thing of she's like this bureaucratic character who's kind of getting down in the dirt with a lot of other people. That's how I saw it, with like all this shit about high heels. Like, she is not into that sort of thing, you know, as part of her job. So they got really upset about the heels, which I know a lot of people complained about. They had this whole thing about, oh, the movie is trying to paint Claire as a bad person for not wanting to have kids. So if we look at just the kids angle, she's a grown-ass woman who puts her career first, says she doesn't want to have kids, doesn't fold to the pressure that society and her family push on her. Oh, but don't you want to have kids? Don't you want to settle down? Which women have to fucking deal with. Like, she, later on in the article, this particular author says that she can't think of anything more heartless, cruel, and thoughtless than telling a woman, don't you want to have children?
Well, that's
really
realistic.
That's the worst thing you can possibly say to another person. Let me put it to you like this. Okay, I had a complete and total stranger tell me that I should marry my boyfriend that he never met after dating him like less than 2 years. Some total stranger told me, oh, don't you want to get married to this other person? It's like, who the fuck are you to tell me? This is a stranger. If you want to talk about familial pressures, oh my god. My grandmother was trying to tell me, oh, don't you want to date? Don't you want to have a boyfriend when I was 7? I was like, no, I don't. I want to run around in the park and jump out of trees and not give a shit about boys. Or girls, for that matter. Like, people pressure people with their own expectations, and especially when the sister is going through, oh, my entire world is falling apart. My ideal of the mom and dad and the 2 kids and the nice house with the fence is all falling apart. My sister is super not into this idea, but this is my idea of what's perfect. So maybe I can, like, since it's falling apart for me, maybe I can, like, push it more on her. Not like as a conscious thing, but this is totally a subconscious thing that people try to push on other people.
And it's kind of funny because she's going through a divorce while saying this.
Right. She's like, don't you want to have kids and settle down while I'm breaking up with my husband? She's trying to, like, project her fantasy onto her sister because she loves her sister.
And let's face it, women do that shit.
They totally do, man. If this is the worst thing that somebody can say to you, you have a really nice life. That's all I'm saying. If that's the worst thing, oh, don't you want to have kids? Well, yeah. I mean, especially, we live in a society where less than 25% of women actually go through with not having children during their lives. In America. This is in America. It's not like the normal thing. A lot of times people say, oh, I don't want to have kids, and then they change their minds. So there's a lot of pressure on women who say, I don't want to have kids. It really is. Actually, even I just went home and a bunch of people were saying, oh, you need to get on it. You need to start having kids so you can continue, like, our family's name and all this stuff. It was like a joke, but it was a legitimate thing that was happening. Like, my family's trying to say, go ahead and have kids.
Well, how can you carry on the family name when it's usually the husband that gets the name?
Right,
anyway?
exactly. They're like, you'll get married and keep your own name and pass it on to your kids. They're like, that was a lot of assumptions you just threw at me. Hold on a minute. This is a normal thing that happens in a lot of families. Not every family, and if this particular author grew up in a family where that's not the thing, that's awesome. That's not a lot of people, though. Aunt Claire, she never folds. She never like, oh my god, my sister is trying to pressure me into having kids. I guess I want to have kids just to, like, get her off. No! She's like, come on, whatever. I don't want to have kids. Bye. But then she spends the whole rest of the movie proving if she ever wanted to have kids, how fucking awesome she would be at being a parent. I mean, she does a lot of stupid stuff, but she's always taking care of the kids once she loses them. She loses them, but then she's like, no, I'm going to take care of the kids. You guys are never going to stay away from me. I'm going to make sure you're protected, and everything's cool. I thought that was impressive. She basically learned her whole maternal instinct in a day, even though she doesn't want to have kids. And yet this is bad on her character. Like, the audience is supposed to feel badly towards her for not wanting to have kids.
Right. And it also says in the article that Like, apparently there was some shock that she didn't know her nephew's ages. So,
No,
so
but that's a real thing that happens all the time, too. People always ask me, like, my relatives' ages, and I'm like, I don't fucking know. People ask you, and nobody knows this shit anymore. I don't know how old my grandparents are, my parents are. I know birthdays sometimes, but I don't know ages. Come on. A lot of times I feel like, and we talked about this before when we talked about the whole Game of Thrones controversy, I think some people misunderstand what the audience is supposed to get out of things. Just because there are characters saying lines and pressuring protagonists does not mean like the audience is supposed to feel that way.
Right.
We're supposed to identify with the protagonist. So when the protagonist has pressure to have a family, pressure to know all these things she doesn't know, pressure to be feminized, and pressure to have all this stuff, we're supposed to identify with her and realize that that shit's bullshit. Not, oh yeah, she should totally be doing that stuff. Like, I think sometimes people misunderstand the difference between the audience and the script.
Right, and it does seem to be that there's a certain culture of people now that want whatever story is being told to like push some social agenda. Which
right.
Stories shouldn't have to push a social agenda.
They shouldn't have to. Yeah.
If it comes up and if there's a point that it makes that's relevant to society and can progress things, that's great. But it's not. It shouldn't be writers shouldn't be obligated to do that.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing too. There's sort of two different factions right now. There's the people who say, you don't need to have a message. There's nothing more important. It's just mindless fun. All media should just be pure entertainment with nothing else to it. And then you have the other camp that's like, you need to put a message and put an agenda in everything. And it's like, why can't you just have some that has some and some that has some other stuff and let each piece stand on its own as whatever it is?
I mean,
that's art, isn't it?
I do think that there should be some message. It doesn't have to be pushing a message, but there has to be some meat to the story, or otherwise it's just pure mindless entertainment, which
sometimes people want that though. That's the thing, is that we live in a capitalist society with a free market. People should be able to put out whatever they want to put out, as long as we do live in a capitalist market. And people should just flock to whatever they want to have. If people want just mindless entertainment, that's available. They can have it. If people want something with more meat to it, it's available. You can have it. Don't not you, but I'm saying just like as a society, we like to bitch about stuff that's out there that we don't like. Well, somebody else likes it. Somebody else wants that. That's fine.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a place to bitch about it. I sometimes think that the arguments are poor, and I'm somebody who wants more out of entertainment sometimes. I want something more profound. I don't want dumb, mindless entertainment like the Avengers. Well, I'm sorry, I don't like the Avengers.
There was nothing to that. The Avengers 2 especially, there was nothing to that.
Well, except the little lullaby thing. I thought that was kind of interesting. But...
No, I mean in terms of meat, something deeper to it. But Jurassic World I thought was really good about... If you want to watch it with sort of a shallow understanding, you'll have a fun time and enjoy the ride. But there's plenty to it below that if you like digging into it.
That's what I like entertainment to be. Something for the people that don't want to get into it, and some other stuff for the people that are a little bit more active viewers.
Yeah, I like movies that do both, where you can enjoy it on a surface level if you want. You can enjoy it on a deeper level if you want. But back to this particular article. First of all, just to recap, Aunt Claire is in charge of an amusement park with dinosaurs. She is a woman with a very highly important, highly selective job. And she's damn good at her job, too. You see her at the beginning, prepping herself and being a human being. But then she goes, she's confident, she knows her shit. She gets Verizon Wireless as her customer. That's a big deal. She fucking rocks it. She is awesome at her fucking job. She is doing really good being a businesswoman and being a career woman. Cool. She runs around. She has adventure. Every time somebody tells her, no, you stay behind. No, you stay in the car. She's like, no, I'm going to go with you. She doesn't give a shit what she looks like. She has to conform to all these standards, but she doesn't let it inhibit her. She can just push beyond that. And she doesn't give it, she lets her hair get frizzled. I love that part because her hair's super straight. And as it goes, it gets more and more unattractive. I thought that was super awesome. She's not like Xena Warrior Princess, because that makes no sense. But then she can go and shoot a fucking pterodactyl and hit it in the head and save Chris Pratt. She's less sexualized than the male lead in the movie. Let's face it, Chris Pratt wearing those, really, really tight pants. He was super sexy in the movie.
And the shirt with his pecs, hanging out and stuff.
Pecs hanging out through his shirt and his vest. She's less sexualized than he is, even though she still looks beautiful. She makes the choice and won't let people pressure her into having children, but she still does have the instinct to care for her family. That's the thing that's comes out of the movie, is like, even these people she wasn't that close to, she knows how to be protective of them, and she learns how to love them, even though that's not something she wants for herself. And you're telling me she's an unfeminist character? Are you serious? Really? That sounds like a fucking amazing character.
Yeah, I mean, she plays the surrogate mother part, which is
usually more awesome than the mother part.
Yeah.
For example, Game of Thrones, Mommy Zombie, fucking best character in season 5 of Game of Thrones.
Then
awesome.
Then you also have Aliens with Ripley and the little girl.
Yeah, so, Ripley was fucking awesome in that movie.
Yeah, I mean...
And also not her kid. She doesn't have to have her own kids, but she's still not unfeeling. The
right.
whole movie was trying to push initially, oh, she's so cold, oh, she's unfeeling, because that is a particular stereotype that people have about career women. That is a thing that people think, oh, if you're a woman and you put your career first, you gotta be cold and unfeeling. So the first part of the movie was trying to push that as a stereotype to break the stereotype later in the movie, and it seems like...
Right, and I've met some career women in my life, and there are some stereotypes that come true about career women. Without sounding too sexist, I am specifically talking about a person that I know and met.
You're talking about one particular person.
One particular person who was married to a billionaire at one point.
Oh.
So, she tried to break out of that relationship, and she did sleep with somebody to get into a position. So,
right.
That's something that exists. I'm not saying. By
the way, that never came up in this movie.
Right,
which it could have.
It totally very easily could have.
It totally could have been a thing of she fell in love with her boss who was at above her or something like that. No, nothing like that.
Yeah,
no.
Because other movies would have had her and Vincent D'Onofrio, they had something in the past or something like that, and so Vincent D'Onofrio has a grudge, and then that's part of it.
Yeah,
this movie didn't do that.
Even though there is the love story in there, her sex life is never really a plot point. I mean, it sort of is for her, she and Chris Pratt are dating, but it never affects anything else.
And there isn't a
her job is not set on her sex life.
Yeah, there isn't a sex scene in this movie either, where they get caught in. Let's face it, normally in these type of movies, they get caught in a freezer. And they gotta keep warm. And things happen.
The spooning scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it just seems like Leslie Coffin just took a very shallow understanding from the initial half of the movie, formed her opinion, and was this movie's sexist. And didn't really understand what happened, how our perception of Anne Claire progresses throughout the movie. She sort of hinged on this, she's cold, and she's unpowerful, even though she's super powerful. And she sort of hung on to that throughout the movie, when the whole movie is trying to tell her, no, look, all these other things about her. But the other thing I just have to point out, because this cracked me up so hard, is in her sort of conclusion, she says, I suppose an entire paper could be written about how Jurassic Park deals with women and motherhood, considering all the dinosaurs are female, but only a man who can tame and control them, or that when left to her own devices without a family or a man to imprint on, they become monsters. Okay. And then she says, but this movie doesn't warrant that much analysis, which I'm okay, bullshit. I'm gonna call bullshit for you saying, I could do this, but I won't. Lame. But second of all, okay.
That's the laziest... That's the typical lazy response that oftentimes these third-wave feminists give, where it's well, I could explain this, but I'm not going to, because there's no fucking point. And, it's okay, so what the fuck is your argument?
You admit, I could think about this a little harder, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
but to get
which is exactly what these people do. They fucking bitch about all this fucking shit. And then And then they complain, this and this and this. Well, if you did your analysis and if you really got into it, you might have a compelling argument.
Yeah.
But you're not willing to actually do the research to argue well, which is why I'm sick and tired of these media critics that can't even criticize something in an in-depth way. I mean, they
have
could
to throw up their hands and say, "I'm not going to do this."
Yeah, they could.
It's your job. Do it.
Here's the thing. There are feminist scholars out there that have criticized films. That exists. If you're going to criticize a movie, you need to do your work. You can't just say, well, throw up my hands, I give up. You need to do your work. Make a compelling argument. People might not agree with you, but if you argue correctly, you can win. You can win an argument.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to put work into it.
Yeah.
But A, it's fine. And B, it's not that fucking
I've
difficult.
read-
It's not like so impossible.
I've read papers and books that argued things that I don't agree with, but they argued well enough that I could see their point, and it almost changed my understanding.
All the time. I disagree with Teal Deer on a lot of things, but I watch his videos because I respect him as somebody who makes arguments and who does research. Penn and Teller, I've seen every episode of Penn and Teller's bullshit. There's a lot of shit where I'm like,
There's a lot of shit where the bullshitters.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
But they're so well researched and they make really good points. I can at least understand and respect their argument. I don't have to agree with it. And that's totally cool. But I can actually respect their argument and listen to them because I respect them, even though we think different things about particular topics. Nothing wrong with that. That's the great thing about arguing is that you learn things. Like so many people, we're getting super off topic from this, but I am getting really sick of living in a generation where everybody wants to be in an echo chamber where all they hear are their own things reflected back at them. You should hear other opinions that are different than your own. You'll learn so much more. You don't have to change. Nobody's saying, oh, you have to agree with everything you hear.
Well, actually, people are saying that now. But.
Well, no, but I'm not saying listen to all these other ideas so you can change your mind. Just learn what's out there. Just learn what other people think and learn how to actually deal with the fact that not everybody agrees with you. Yeah. Because they don't. But,
willful ignorance is probably the worst thing.
Yeah.
Is a trend right now because people are so focused on their fucking computers that they're not talking with each other and engaging in ways that they could understand each other better.
Yeah. But getting back on topic, back to what she was saying about, well, all the dinosaurs are girls, but only a man can tame and control them or else they'll run amok. Okay, first of all, let's continue on with her argument that there is a male-female paradigm within trans-species relationships, which I think is a big fucking stretch. Let's just go with that. Here's the situation. There are these raptors who are female. It doesn't matter, but there are these raptors who are female. This military dude comes in and says, I want to control them. They take commands. I want to make them a tool and take away their agency. And Chris Pratt, the man who she's talking about in this particular situation, says, no, you can't control them. They do what they want. They look at what they want. I cooperate with them, and we have a give and take relationship, but they have their own agency, and I have mine. They are not tools. You cannot control them. How is that unfeminist? How is he controlling them? Yeah, there is the imprinting thing that happens, but that's a parental thing. Like, babies imprint upon adults who take care of them. It can happen across species, but it's a parenting thing. It's not a man-woman dynamic. It is not the man oppressing the females. He says they have their own fucking agency and he stands up for them. He's the male feminist in the movie. What the fuck?
Oh, but men can't. You can't have a male feminist hero. It has to be. No. It has to be the woman that takes charge and all this kind of stuff because that's how these people argue.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to first and second wave feminism or black womanism, and there is a dynamic of men and women working together to make things equal, knowing that there are differences between men and women. Men and women are not the same.
No, it's a biological thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just a thing of, oh, well, men have dicks and women have vaginas. Like, no, here's the thing.
I was thinking of the fucking scene in Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, okay. But there's also a lot of things that happen. We have different hormonal makeups. We have different chemical makeups. There's a lot of things that go on in our brain with our brain chemistry and with a lot of mental things that do have a tendency to side on either the male-female binary. There's also the fact that biologically speaking, we do live on a spectrum and there isn't a binary in the first place. But human beings are not all identical. We need, I agree with equality, but we have to have a quality understanding that people are individuals. Everybody is different on a conscious level, on a personal level, on a biological level. Everybody is different. We're not all the exact same thing, so why can't we all be treated the exact same way? Everybody's different. We can still have equality while appreciating that everybody is different. That's like what everybody tries to teach you when you're a little kid. I grew up with a lot of those kumbaya, everybody's different, but we're all the same sort of things. So I just wanted to make a response about this article because I saw it and I just kind of want to be like, yeah, it pointed out all the ways that it's really feminist with its really fallacious argument that really didn't pay a lot of attention to the movie. And I'm not trying to make a hit piece. I'm not trying to say anything personal about Leslie Coffin, even though I said that thing about her life must be really nice if pushing kids on her is like the worst thing she can possibly think of happening. I just read this and it made me laugh so, and I read it a few times because I was just like, wow, really? But everybody has their own interpretation. Film is, it's a subjective media, but I just wanted to put out there, this is what I got out of it. That Claire was a really awesome feminist character. She was pretty badass for somebody who was not a badass gunslinging, purely violent character, which a lot of people are trying to overthrow that to have a cool character, she has to be this pure violent badass, which I agree with. You should have a spectrum of what makes a cool, quote unquote, female character, and I feel like she fits in very nicely.
What do you think of the notion that they decided to go with two brothers instead of
like a brother and a sister or something?
Yeah, in the first movie.
Well, I think they had a very specific reason for choosing a teenage boy, because the whole sort of zombie, I'm just super into my phone and really awkward and shy.
Check out those hot chicks.
Yeah,
oh my god, I'm just gonna stare at them.
Translated with a girl as well. Yeah. If you're just trying to sort of tear apart the stereotype.
Well, she'd be more focused on her phone.
Well, she would have been taking selfies or talking on the phone. She would have been a lot more
What girls talk on the phone anymore?
With texting, I know.
Yeah.
But she could have been oh my god, blah blah blah. If you're going with trying to take apart the stereotype, going with teenage boy works better than teenage girl, because teenage girls are a little bit more active than teenage boys, where teenage boys it's just sort of cross my arms, oh yeah, sure, whatever.
I don't know, man. Have you seen some of the teenage girls these days?
No, I'm talking about purely as a stereotype. If you're going after a stereotype, the stereotype of teenage boy works better than the stereotype of teenage girl. Yeah. I'm not talking about if you want to start with a fully developed, fleshed out character, they sort of tried to do with the kid. The kid could have very easily been a girl. Yeah. Very easily. You could have had, like I said, he reminded me a lot of me when I was his age. He could have been like Riley in Inside Out. There wasn't really a reason why he needed to be a boy or a girl. I don't mind the fact that it was two boys. It doesn't really make a difference to me because I just liked him as a character. I didn't really care if he was a boy or a girl, but you could have had him be a girl and had the exact same character. Except for maybe, you remember when we worked on Grandpa's car? I don't know, girls can totally be mechanics. Look at Fullmetal Alchemist. Winry was awesome because she was this badass
Or look
mechanic.
At Transformers, Megan Fox.
No, that doesn't count. That doesn't fucking count. Anyways, yeah, he could have been a girl or a boy, but it doesn't really matter. I don't care. I was gonna say, I think it might have taken something away from Claire to have a little girl, because it might have been a thing of her playing favorites. If she connects more with the little girl, it's because they're girls and they have this feminine bond, and not just because the kid is more likable than the teenager. But what are your thoughts? We'll add the review in the box below, but check it out and read it for yourself and let us know what you think. Just real quick, because we know that we sort of run in circles where this can happen sometimes, please don't be super mean to this author or be super inflammatory for the sake of being inflammatory.
Right. I mean,
I'm not trying to control people, but
there's a
I don't endorse that.
Right. There is a trend of people immediately reacting from their gut in really hostile. In really hostile ways, and we don't encourage that, and we do not condone that either.
No. I mean, I know I said some mean things about the actual post, but I actually had something to say to it, and I'm not trying to attack the author. Please don't attack the author.
Let us know what you think.
Yep.
And let us know what other topics you would like us to discuss. Apparently, feminism seems to be one that has us motivated, so we can talk about that and people who criticize movies that we enjoy.
Yeah. And also the other thing too is don't be afraid to criticize us. I mean, like, please actually converse with us if you do, because we like to hear other things. But like I said, criticism and arguing are not bad things.
If you're going to criticize us, give your points.
Yeah.
Say what we said wrong instead of just throwing out an emotion there. That doesn't help us in any way.
But we like having arguments and learning more from other people. So we're not like going to be like, oh, we're going to criticize critics. But we don't want people to criticize us because that's bullshit.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys.